You are listening to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, episode 18, How to Do Horror in Games. Today we talk about doing a horror game and incorporating scary scenes into your games. We discuss how to make the scene scary and how to keep the players wanting more. We cover how to deal with levity from your players and how to manipulate your players into scary situations. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you like the show, please subscribe, leave us a review, or tell a friend. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and across from me, he'll never show you the monster until the end, Jared.
Hi, everybody.
So anyways, how are you doing today, Jared?
Not bad. Yourself?
I'm doing great. It's been a pretty good weekend, all things considered. Wish it was a little bit warmer so I could get outside, but
Yeah, it's slightly raining, slightly cold. Allie and I have been going on walks lately, so just get out of the house.
That's a good way to break up the stay-at-home orders that we're under right now. So.
Yeah, it was some of the stay-at-home orders I've noticed are loosening, at least people's adherence to them. I was at a store getting groceries, and it was like a madhouse in there. It was nuts. I was like, oh my God.
People are becoming less freaked out about going to the grocery. So
yeah, it was, but for weeks it's been very organized and very well done, and my applaud to them. But this week it was like a madhouse. I don't think they could have stopped that train. They were trying though. By the time I left, they had gotten it more under control, but because I came outside and there was a line outside the store. But when I walked in, it was rampant chaos. So, I got your text earlier, and I just do want to say a shout out to two new listeners. Apparently, one in Houston. Love the state of Texas. Can't wait to visit someday. I love, I guess, all the genre that's built up around it because I've never been there. But shout out to Houston, Texas, and shout out to Charleston. So welcome aboard, and we hope you guys really enjoy the show.
So today, without further ado, we're going to go into our topic here. And Jared came up with this one. But today we're going to talk about thematic game here, and specifically how to do a good scary game, or how to do a good scary scene.
Now, for most of our listeners, I want to tell them, like, Aaron is really the mastermind behind this. I show up and talk. He comes up with tons of the topics. He does all the tech. So Aaron's really the arc de triomphe of the show. But I'm very happy on this one because Aaron, is also getting to the point of being what we'd call a master of horror.
I don't know if I'm quite there, Jared. You still hold the mantle.
But still, for our listeners, last week we had a game, and Aaron started off in such a way that it was True Detective. If you've never seen that show, it was very True Detective-ish. Just this feeling of just not being comfortable and just something lurking down below. It was fantastic, and I think it's going to be a real scary game. I think it's going to be great. So, horror, how do we do it? One of the things that's great about horror or scary games is that there's tons of materials on it, and fear is something that can transfer from all sorts of mediums. We've seen people get scared because of movies. We see people get scared because of books. People can absolutely get scared because of role-playing games. You can absolutely do it. And there are many games that actually push themselves to fear. I think White Wolf actually markets itself as a game of gothic horror. Call of Cthulhu is another game system that is literally based on horror. I think if you go through the books, or many of the books, you're going to find a lot of them that are based on horror, or a lot of systems that are based on horror.
It's a good theme, though. I mean, a horror game is something that helps really kind of break up the nature of the when you think about the situations you put your players in. Tension and horror, like those are things that where your mind can really kind of play the tricks that you need to have it play. It's easy once you get somebody immersed in it, like their mind starts racing with it, and it's just like this this thought of like, what's happening next? Like, who's watching me? Like, can you really make that feel scary to somebody? And I think Jared's going to point out that yes, you can.
Oh, yes, you can. Probably one of my most terrifying games was known as Red Lake. It took place on an Indian reservation. And why this is key is because of where I put them. Setting is very key to creating a good horror session. Isolation. They need to be isolated. For example, in modern games, they can't just be able to call the police. You know, in futuristic games, they can't just get on the communicator and call, you know, Imperial forces or Alliance forces to come help them out. Medieval times is great because there is no communication and generally there is no one coming to help you. So isolation away from normal areas is fantastic. You might want to focus away from from larger cities that you might be thinking of, like, oh, it's in the tunnels below the city. The thing is, though, is that there's always many paths of escape. One of the great things that I generally do is that I try to limit the idea of escape. There's no getting away. You're stuck there. You have to confront the monster, the fear. But also having them think that there is, you got to almost make it like a video game where there's that invisible boundary. They think that there's a larger world out there, but really they're contained.
Yeah, a lot of what makes horror, scary is not so much that you don't have the options to get out of it, but that thinking that you don't have the options to get out of it. And so, I mean, what Jared's saying here is when you think about it, if you try to make like a horror game that happens in like the middle of a big city, okay, it's really hard to make that spot scary because maybe they run to the subway, maybe they run up into a building. It's hard to lock your players in an area that has so many options for escape, and it's hard to make that feel scary. Now you can make it feel scary in the sense that nobody's around, and in a big city that's really eerie and weird,
Terrifying.
okay. And so it's like it doesn't really matter where you go because you can't outrun what is already scattered the humans, okay. Something
And
like that.
and that's a great point. It's a point I want to piggyback on. One great horror technique, and I forget which horror director mentioned this, but essentially was taking people and getting them just a little bit off. Just having them a little off of what is normal, typical human behavior is very frightening, because we know how humans behave. We're all humans.
We hope.
We hope. If we have any vampire listeners, we apologize. But just taking them a little off base, just a little unpredictable, acting a little strangely. Those little minute tweaks can make something seem very off, and it's scary to the human condition. Other scary conditions that I personally love is I generally look back at the primordial human self. We are naturally afraid of the dark. I base an entire game off of taking away my players' visibility. Now, my players were smart and they found a way around it, and it was a cool system. But to a large extent, I tried to keep things very dark, very limited in sight, because humans are naturally, we have a instinct to fear the dark because we don't know what's eating us out there. Um, Things that can be hidden, things that we can't see. Humans have fantastic vision, but we're not great animals. We don't have good smell, we don't have good hearing, and our night vision is crap comparatively like cats. So taking away seeing the villain at every turn, or them being able to view it easily is something you want to take away, because it's that sense of not being able to see it. Now, there's a flip side to this. Okay, a lot of us will be tempted, like, oh man, they can't touch it, they can't feel it, and yada yada. It has to still be lethal to them. I have made that mistake in the past, where they couldn't grab something, but something really couldn't grab them. Made that mistake. Terrible mistake. Everything has to be lethal. If you're creating ghosts, these ghosts need to be able to harm the humans or the players without, or well, the characters. Don't harm the players.
No, don't harm the players.
No hitting players. No, it's not allowed. You need to make it, and you can't be gun shy with it. There are many storytellers out there, especially cerebral ones, who really like those mind games. You can't be gun shy in horror. You've got to be ready to hurt the characters. You got to be ready to tear them, to bring the lethality of the story there.
Yeah, that's probably one of the exceptions to our rule, which is, you shouldn't be out to kill your players. Well, I'm not saying that you should be out to kill your players here, but you should be out to really inflict harm upon the characters in which they are playing. Meaning that, you want to make it known that if they make the wrong step here, the monster will kill them. Okay? Really, really make it apparent to them that that's going to happen, and make sure that your monster is capable of killing them. Okay, meaning that bad gameplay will result in player death.
Perfect. I mean, that's perfect way to put it. So just make sure that lethality is there, because for example, D&D storytellers, our DMs that are listening, I know you guys have a rough road to climb because you have so many buffs and modifiers, and they've got an armor of this, and they got a healer, and they got a wizard, and they got when you are creating your monster has to be able to overcome your players' capabilities. They have to be able to bring the lethality despite, for example, if the healer can just heal every laceration, then you need to make sure those lacerations, when the healer comes, make sure those lacerations were real enough to really need the healer to do their stuff. Don't make it a scratch where the healer is just putting their hand over the guy's, little scratch on his arm and goes, it's healed. No, you need to bring the pain.
And one more point on the lethality that you're kind of bringing in there is that this only really applies to the encounters in which you don't have in which you don't intend to have your players kill the monster quite yet. Okay, if you go back to Alfred Hitchcock, I made the little reference to it here at the beginning of the show, which was you never show the monster until the end of the game, because once the players encounter it, and if they are not affected by it, you will not be able to scare them with that monster any longer. Okay, it's done. Okay, up until that point, you can have the monster be uber strong, okay, and reach out from the shadows to do damage to them, and it could break through their armor piercing. I don't know why it could break through their DC, but you can do that until you show them the monster. Once you've shown them the monster, if the monster is too lethal, it will probably kill them. But if it's not lethal enough, you can't have them escape the monster and then presume that monster will be enough to keep scaring them. It's done. You've broken the immersion at that point. So it's usually a good idea in a horror game, when you're going to have someone encounter the monster, is until you actually intend to have them fight the monster, don't have them see or fight the monster in full quite yet.
And that's a perfect point. I mean, Alfred Hitchcock said it best. So really, I focus very hard on keeping the monster shadowed, just out of reach, only known by the markings that it leaves. For example, footprints that look like chicken feet. And that really goes into my next thing with it, is the monster needs to break the rules. Okay, you cannot go to the monster manual, flip it open, or the Ultimate Alien Appendix for Star Wars, and flip it open and go, this is going to be my monster. The monster has to break the rules because your players have access to those resources. Knowing something intimately or knowing a lot about it brings down how scared we are of it. It's not knowing. It's not being able to predict or understand what it is. Is that saying that the monster can't be a creature that they know? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the monster has to break the rules, because that scares. That scares. If you have a vampire that, is not acting like a typical vampire. He's breaking the rules, whether it be socially, physically, or mentally. He is somehow breaking the rules. If you're going with that human monster aspect, I really recommend you watch The Dark Knight. Um, the Joker is a great representation of how a mortal breaks the rules. Um, you know, once you do something, everybody loses their mind. Go with that. That's a natural instinct. We want things to fall into categories, order. We're trained in that since grade school. Things fit into boxes. They don't deviate from your box. Take that box, let the monster out just enough to set it off base. This is not following the typical behavior of X. Now they don't know what they're dealing with. So I highly, highly encourage you guys to do that. Just make it just enough. Just need enough of a break.
And just to kind of hit Jared's point there too, with the you just want to make things just a little bit different from standard human nature. What made his Red Lake game so successful was that it wasn't. It was like a totally different culture. I mean, if you think about like going to a place where you're totally isolated and you are one of a couple of people investigating a murder, for example, which is what was happening there, in a land that's foreign to you, and you're asking questions about a murder to people who don't follow the same customs as you, that's what's scary. Okay. It's scary in that sense that it's very intense every time that you talk to someone and they speak a different language to the person next to them. Like, what have they just told them? Like, did they tell them these people are onto us? Kill them? Like, you don't know. It's that very, very scary kind of moment. And then how, if you're trying to do like a horror game in the sense of, is it a murderer doing something or a monster doing something, and you're trying to leave that ambiguous to players, it has to look enough like a human could do this, and that a human maybe is capable of really covering their tracks and thinking very smart through like a murder scene here, especially if you're investigating something like that, or looking at something like that in a scene. But it also has to look like this definitely could be a monster, but a human could do this. And what is that? It's that kind of ambiguity of what you're dealing with that really makes things scary.
It does. It does. Oh my God! When you just set it off just a little bit. So, isolation. You want to look at that, not showing the monster, making sure the monster breaks the rules, making sure that there's ambiguity. This is, I guess, our warning for this one. For those of you who really do like doing horror games, like I love doing horror games. Absolutely love it. Love building them. The thing is that you can't make this a common theme. It generally is not sustainable as a long-term campaign theme. I challenge every person who listens to us, break our rules. I say it's not sustainable long-term campaign.
These are more guidelines than rules.
Guidelines. Go out, see if you can break the code. I think last week or a while ago, we talked about how I love breaking preconceived notions. Like you can't do a prison game. Figured it out. If you can figure out how to do a long-term horror campaign, by all means, go ahead. God bless, and please tell us of your success. Shoot us an email. We'd love to hear it. So really make sure that scary is contained. If you're running a long-term campaign, let's say it's a group of adventurers in Star Wars, this group of Jedi, you can't do your entire campaign based on scary.
You get many scary moments. You just can't have a super scary campaign as a whole. It just doesn't work. It falls flat at some point, and that's the unfortunate part, because what's going to happen even in a scary scene, you can only immerse your players for so long before they will break your scene with levity, and that's just human nature. Like they're going to crack a joke because they're going to try and get rid of the horror. They're going to try to make things seem more normal than what they actually are. and that's why you just can't do a prolonged campaign that's all in horror, because you can't rain every day. Jared learned
It
that the
can't.
hard way.
I learned that the hard way. It's meteorologically impossible. So I fill you in on that story. It was a very long time ago, and I was doing something themed where it was like raining like every day in the game. And Brian looked at me and goes, "Jared, it can't rain every day. It's not meteorologically possible." And I was like, "Yeah," because essentially what I had done was I had taken the theme too long, too hard, and it wore on my players. It was a depressing thing, and nobody wanted to deal with it anymore. Just like your crew might not want scary every fucking night. You know, they might want a couple opportunities to let off the chain and throw their lightsaber around and smash some shit. You know, you need to have the healthy balance between your scary and your moments of levity, and that even applies inside a horror. Like, let's say you're doing a one shot or just a contained campaign. If you are doing that, there's going to be moments of levity. Allow those. Just don't allow them on the parts that are supposed to be.
Yeah, you can only immerse so long. I mean, you can only submerge. It's like holding your breath. I mean, you can only do it for so long before you actually have to come back up for air and see the other side of things. And also, you end up with theme fatigue. So if you end up doing a scary game too long, your players will either overcome the bits that are scary because they will have powered up to the extent that the game is no longer scary, or you will be doing the same theme so long that your players, like, I love playing in the horror games. I think they're really suspenseful. They really challenge you in terms of how you think through stuff, and they feel very, very fun to play in. Jared's game was great in that regard, but even in his game in Red Lake, it was not scary all the time. There was a lot of moments that it wasn't scary. There were just a bunch of very creepy moments interspersed throughout everything. So it was like every moment that you end up in a tense scene, you end up in a normal scene. So it has to ebb and flow in a very specific way. So it's kind of like doing a dance in that regard, which you're trying to put the really scary moments there, which is, I'm going to submerge you, you're going to hold your breath, you're going to be in it 100%, and then you're going to come back up for air, and that's the moment of levity. And you're trying to hit those notes so your players don't destroy a scene with a bad joke or do something like that.
And I mean, like, honestly, Aaron's hit the nail on the head when it came to the idea of holding your breath. You might say to yourself, well, my friends love horror. We get together every weekend and we watch at least one horror. But you got to remember, it's 2 hours of a horror movie, once a week. It's not a 5-hour gaming session or 4-hour gaming session of horror every week for the next 4 months. You know what I mean? It does not bode well, I can guarantee you. But prove me wrong, please. I would love to hear of a protracted, especially you Call of Cthulhu players. My brother actually sent me some of their books, and it's an interesting system. So, I'm sure many of you have probably done maybe a little bit longer, and we'd love to hear about it. So one of the things when it comes to horror is music. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time on this one because it's pretty common sense. Scary music makes people scared.
Yeah, go back to the music and atmosphere episode if you want to hear more about that.
Jesus, I mean, it's really easy. I mean, if you type in spooky music, just understand if you do a Google search for scary Halloween music, you're going to get a lot of the woo, wow, background effects that are made for cheesy haunted houses or for haunted. I say that with quotes. Haunted houses. Look for movie soundtracks of good horror movies. Or very suspenseful, very dark movies. They work great. But I'm not really gonna. Excuse me. Ugh, that nap messed me up. I'm not really gonna go into music for very long, just because. I mean, Aaron, do you have any insights into music?
Yeah, I mean, I would typically say avoid doing songs that have lyrics in them. I think the only one that you ever play for us that has a lyric in it is the Marilyn Manson song, "The Sweet Dreams," uh,
Oh yeah.
version of that, and that's a creepy song the way that he does it. But aside from that, you sort of stay away from lyrical music. And I would say that in general, when you're picking music for your games, it just tends to break immersion with what you're trying to do. But yeah, if you're looking for creepy stuff. If you play video games, you play you watch scary movies. You can search for scary music on YouTube, but I'm going to tell you, you're probably going to find massive compilations. They're just not worth your time. So
Sound effects. Sound effects are good. If you want to search up sound effects roars for your monster. Um, One of the great ones that I used for the Red Lake, which the monster was the Wendigo. I actually typed in Wendigo sound effects, went through a few of them, and found one that was just fantastic. So if you want to make your monster roar, if you want to have a sound, a voice, uh, go for it. Look for those odd animal noises or stuff like that. I think it's what's the one movie? A Quiet Place. The actual sound effect for that was used to create the monster's noise was actually the crunching of celery. That was the actual sound effect. So there are a lot of sounds out there that you might not think are terrifying. It's the association that makes them terrifying. I mean, think about it. We hear that sound all the time, the crunching of celery. Like, but
But when put in that scene,
that
it just, oh boy, it scares the pants off.
exactly. So get creative. Have that monster manipulate sound and stuff like that, and use sound to your advantage. I would like to warn you with when it comes to characters that are packed to the gills, characters that have so much equipment, stuff like that. It can get messy because the thing is they will try all the things in the bag of tricks. The nice thing is when you've created a really well crafted monster, if you know the equipment of your players, like for example, uh, if you know they've got torches that will light up an area, make sure they know that there's a limitation of those torches. They can't see all the way to the end of the hallway. They can see what's in front of them for maybe 15, 20 feet. Look up, do that research on how far darkness can proceed. Sometimes they will have equipment on them that will make things not so scary because they're so buffed. Find a way to eliminate those buffs. I've got the mandibles of Katori that can crush any rock. Okay, find a way to make sure that the monster isn't based out of rock. Make it clay. I don't know. Can't really crush clay. Just pour out the other side. I'm sorry, I've been watching too much Batman stuff, so Clayface is just on my mind. Um, it's Batman. I love Batman. I love DC. So, taking characters, but what that boils down to, is taking away power. It's very scary when our power is taken away. Power being a gun, uh, power being a sword, a mandibles of Kretar, or my spell book. And when I say take away the power, I don't mean like, haha, have someone steal the book before they go into the tomb. No. What happens when you get them to doubt the power of their own devices? For example, Aaron's character had a weapon with a thermal scope. What happens when things don't show up on thermal?
Yeah, when
You
things
start
don't
to
show
doubt.
up on thermal, or if you have the mandibles of Katari, like Jared said, what happens when you try to crush a rock? They stop working. Like nothing says that your monster can't disable powers. Nothing says your monster can't make a sword dull. Okay, nothing says that your monster can't do these things. That's what makes monsters scary. Okay, it's when your preconceived notions stop working, meaning my sword is supposed to work here, and it's not working.
And you can even get them to doubt, make it an illusion. If you make it an illusion and you just get them to doubt it, you might watch them put away those mandibles for the rest of the session. Really, it was one simple illusion that made them believe. And you put input doubt. What makes a werewolf to an extent scary is the fact that only silver can kill it. And who carries around a silver bullet in their gun? Except for maybe me. Maybe. Why would I own one of those? I don't know.
To all you werewolves out there, watch out for Jared.
First round silver. It's gonna sting. Is the belief that our regular arms, my shotgun with 12 gauge slug, is not going to take this thing down. It shatters my preconceived notion that I have the power, and it welcomes the terror to creep in. Silent terrors are great. I do like surrounding them with the aftermath of terror, because what you really need to do when it comes to horror is get your players afraid. How can you get them afraid? Everyone looks at the character. Oh, yes, this was the point. I remember it now. See, ladies and gentlemen, this is how my brain works, and I've almost lost it again. It's now on the tip of my tongue.
It's KYP. It's know your players. Your goal is not to make the character scared. It's to make the player scared.
The player scared. So know your players. Know what gets them a little bit afraid, and interject those. Aaron, for example, knows one thing that creeps me out the most is the when people start walking that spider walk,
like the backwards spider walk, like Exorcist, or you don't like that. That just nope.
Terrifies the fuck out of me. No, thank you. No. Find out what terrifies your players, and you can lay this in throughout your campaign while you build up your scary part of your campaign. Just ask them, like, what scares you? What makes you bite your nails? I don't know, during your weekly horror movie, what really scares you? I'm terrified of snakes. I fucking hate snakes. Aaron starts introducing snakes into his fucking games. I'm like, nope. What did he do? He made a whole game about a naga. All right, I fucking hate snakes. All right, I hate them. They can just. So with you all, always look into what terrifies your players more than what terrifies their characters. And I'm telling you, one of the things that terrifies people is when things don't act like they're supposed to. When the book says, a shadow wolf can do this much damage and has these abilities, and suddenly has one more, it shatters preconceived notions and allows fear to come in, allows that doubt. So yeah, it's that's a big point.
Yeah, there's so many ways that you can do that. I mean, it's like when the rules of how you enter the place stop working the way that they're supposed to work. For example, we did a Wraith game, and I entered into Blackwell's Island. It's probably one of Jared's better horror segments, scary moments. I went in there, we subjected someone to become pathos, and they gave it to me. So their body, like their corporeal form, became this energy that wraiths use for their powers. And he handed it to me. And one of the things that Jared kept saying, it was sort of a riddle, but it was also scary as hell, was no one leaves Blackwell's alive. And I walk away out of this room, and the warden doesn't follow me. And now I'm in 1920s Blackwell's Island, New York. Okay. And I'm in a completely dark jail cell. And the only thing that's illuminating my light is this little glowing ball of pathos that I'm holding on to. So that's all I have. And I am walking through, and then suddenly the rules and the physics don't work. I have to climb cells to work my way up and out, and it was just beautifully done in terms of, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. I mean, it was just beautifully done in terms of how you took something that the player, you walk the player into a safe spot. So one of the big things here with horror is that you can't get the players to walk into the spooky forest. Okay, the spooky forest. If you're going to have the players walk into the spooky forest, they have to have a reason to walk into the spooky forest. It's a lot easier though to walk your players into the safe forest, and then when they're in the middle of it, turn it into the spooky forest. Okay,
That's how you do it.
That's how you do it.
It was all nice with chipmunks, and then somebody flipped a switch, and suddenly it went to hell.
Because you're a rational, sane person, so you go, I'm not walking in there, and
No.
it's like no, I'm not walking in where the bloodstains are. No, I'm not doing any of that. Don't make it like that. Don't make it like that until you actually get into the middle of it. Then it becomes the worst thing in the world. Ghosts can do that. Anything can do that. Your monster can do that. Okay, just do it that way.
Let it change. Let it roll. Let that monster manipulate the environment. Environment is oh man, you can turn one from good to bad very quickly. Just make sure that your monster has those capabilities. Write them in. My next thing though, with the monster capabilities, and it brings to mind, always make sure that you've got everything set up with your monster. I have made that mistake in the past where I didn't assign strength to my monster. I knew what I wanted the monster to do to scare my players. I never assigned dots, and Aaron, as Aaron has said in White Wolf, we use dots. I didn't assign attribute scores, so I was just pulling rolls out of my ass, and it does not work as well. It does not flow as well as when you have assigned dots to your monster. You know what it's going to do. You know what it's capable of. When you know that monster so well and can manipulate that monster, then you got a good thing going.
Exactly. You got to make sure that you are prepared for the moment that they finally do meet your monster in your scary game, or that they do overcome the horror aspect in the scary game or the scary scene. And I think that that's the big thing. The only other thing I want to say is the only thing I would advise you not to do is don't play this like video game horror. So this can't be like the Resident Evil, um, Raccoon City Police Department. Okay, where you need to collect a certain set of keys, you need to do a certain set of things. I have never found video game themed work in a horror game that works for a video game to work in actual role playing. And the reason why is that role playing isn't bound by the same rules that video games have. So if you're going to do something like that, you have to set up that I have physical boundaries that you cannot overcome through any of your skills. And the player, it sort of breaks the immersion of the whole scene and everything that you're trying to build up to with there. So I would say try to avoid doing, you need the skeleton key to get into the arms locker to get the flamethrower to kill the monster.
Avoid MacGuffins.
I wouldn't do it that way, and it's not as scary as you think it's going to be.
Yeah, and especially it has. I like breaking rules and I like bending rules, but the idea of a guy saying I need to go interrogate somebody. Does anyone have the heart key? It just brings more confusion than it does terror. Oh man, I left the heart key back at my desk. So.
How do you get to the desk? I need the spade key. Oh, let's move the lion statue. You can see how ridiculous this can become. It's not even that scary. It's more funny when you think about it within that comical sense.
It is. So here's another thing. And I know this from personal experience. There will become times in your horror game where your players are going to respond with levity. They're going to try to act out in some way, shape, or form. Fuck it, I just blew up the fucking place. Understand the difference between frustration and that they're scared and trying to get away from the scary. One of them is frustration. And that's generally created by spade keys and heart keys and the emerald fire flamethrower. Then there is, this is scaring me, I want to get out of the situation. Sometimes when jokes are cracked in the middle of game, you are going to get upset. You're going to feel that blood rising. Remember what Aaron said, levity is a way out of fear. It is a reaction because you are afraid, so you're trying to bring light to the darkness. Let them go ahead and drag them further into the darkness. Okay, you're on the way, you're on the path. They're trying to break that. Okay, it's a normal human reaction. Now, if it is a player who just likes to, fart in the middle of your games, encourage them like, hey, I'm going for this mood tonight. Can you not make your standard 3 o'clock fart? Or whatever you need to say to the player. I'm and you can always explain it that I am trying to build something, and most players will understand. Like, oh, okay, I shouldn't act like a jackass, and that might offset your other players to be like, what the fuck? Not even Johnny is doing his normal, thing. So look into that. Altering players to add a game, using out of game to bring in game. It can do something. It can do something. So
yeah, but no, I think we've hit on quite a few points. Do you have anything else you want to talk about there, Jared? Or
no, I'm great.
all right. Well, yeah, that's just a couple of tips there for doing a horror game or doing a scary scene. We hope that maybe you give us your feedback on it. If you crack the code, tell Jared, because I'm sure he'd love to know how to do
I'd love it.
a mega scary game over and over and over again. But if you wanted to tell us about how you did that, go ahead and reach out to us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com. And otherwise, subscribe, review, tell your friends, give it to your gaming group. Get everyone involved in our Level Up Your Gaming podcast community here, and we look forward to bringing this to you every week. So for Jared, I'm Aaron. Have a good week, guys.
Have a good week.